Hello, Don here. Welcome to Podiatry Practice Mastery. Today I have a very special episode. This is actually an interview that I did for Podiatry Marketing. So if you don't know Tyson Franklin or Jim McDonald, they both have a podcast that has about 200 episodes. They are very faithful at doing one episode a week. And I was one of the special guests for their 200th episode, and I asked them if I could repost it here. So if you like this episode, I would certainly recommend you going and listening to their podcast as well. It's called Podiatry Marketing. It is everything on marketing your practice, helping you to grow your practice. Once again, thank you for listening, and I'd love to know what you think about this episode. Shoot me an email, don@podiatrypracticemastery.com. Any of your questions, any of your comments, helping you get your practice to the $1 million mark and beyond.
You're listening to Podiatry Marketing, conversations on building a successful podiatry practice with Tyson Franklin and Jim McDonald.
Welcome back to Podiatry Marketing, a very special 200th anniversary, 200th episode. I guess not the 200th anniversary. That'd be kind of crazy.
That was weird. Yeah, we've gone for 200 years.
It's been married a long time.
But we have a special guest today. We'd like to welcome actual practicing podiatrist, Don Pelto, to the show today. Tyson and I are excited to have you join us today, Don. So welcome.
Thanks. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Tyson. Appreciate the time to be on your show.
No, I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say because, like Jim said, we've got a practicing podiatrist on here.
No, absolutely. But, before we just jump into straight about, these marketing topics and how it's, 200 episodes, we thought having a, actual practicing podiatrist that has an interest in marketing, who's, built his own website that has a knowledge of this. How did you kind of get started, Don, in having an interest in marketing and kind of when you started to practice?
I've been interested in marketing ever since I read Michael Gerber's book, probably called The E-Myth.
Oh, yeah.
And that was probably when I was in college. I read E-Myth. I read How to Win Friends, Influence People, Anthony Robbins, like Tony Robbins, all these things. This was when I was in high school. And then when I got into podiatry school, I quickly got bored of studying when I was in the bowels of Rosalind Franklin University in the basement. And all of a sudden I looked on the magazine shelves, and there were something like much more interesting than anatomy to me. It was called Podiatry Management Magazine. And they've had to have, I don't know how many years Barry has put it out, but I read through all the annals of podiatry management when I was taking breaks from my studying, because I didn't really like studying and I liked business more. And I loved it. And there were some great things from the American Academy of Podiatric Practice Management. And most of the ideas I liked that resonated with me were things like John Juliana and Lynn Homisak, or all these other people within podiatry, or American podiatry anyway. They were writing this stuff. And I was like, wow, this stuff is great. And no one's teaching me this in school. And I actually liked it much more because it inspired me. I've just always liked that. I even think, even before that, if you know about me a little bit, I was a magician and a juggler. I wanted to be a professional magician. It was a lot of nights and weekends. And I ended up kind of doing podiatry as my backup gig because it's kind of hard to be a professional magician. They don't get paid that much. And so I enjoy that kind of being in front of people. That's maybe why I like the podcast stuff. I like the public speaking stuff. And I liked the marketing, because the marketing was like applied psychology. And I liked sales books. And I felt like a fish out of water. Like no one else really liked these things except me, until I find geeks kind of like you that like marketing and things like that. And I still find it hard when I go to these conferences. There's only a few conferences that they don't flex their surgical muscles. A lot of the conferences, they flex those muscles, and that's not too interesting to me. But if you talk to me about like direct response marketing or, AdWords and other things like that, I get really kind of excited.
How do you feel then? Because I used to cop this all the time. Very similar background to yourself. I read the E-Myth. Did you ever cop any flack from other podiatrists saying, "Oh, you're unprofessional because you care more about business and marketing than being a better podiatrist?" And I used to go, "But it makes me a better podiatrist." Did you find the same?
All the time, every single day, even with my other colleagues. I have two other partners, and I get it from them.
Yeah. What was that like?
And I have more fun, and I just enjoy it more, I think.
So what was that like when you go from residency into practice and you have this, interest in marketing and business acumen. Do you remember some of the first things you had to kind of like, how you got those things moving? Like, how did you introduce to those even now to your partners or to your colleagues that might be a little more reticent about these different ways of getting visibility for your services and for your clinic?
Yeah, well, we can even talk about residency. In residency, I put together the residency website. I was interested in that. During residency, I had my protocols all set up for how I was going to treat everything, like all the top 20 conditions, what I was going to do, visit 1, visit 2, visit 3. How I was going to, again, and now I know the words, how I was going to upsell, how I was going to influence, how I was going to do these things like that, even from residency. And then when I got into private practice, I walked into a practice that was already busy. So I guess my one regret is that I walked into one doctor left one day, and I entered to a fully packed schedule. So I had no incentive for me to go out and market. And that was my one regret. I still did it. I still went around. So between July and when I started in October, I went and met the other doctors, and I set up meet and greets and things like that. Everything that I read in the magazines that I should do. But I didn't have to do it because I was quite busy. But then after like that kind of calmed down, then I realized, oh my goodness, I probably should have done this. But I was just so busy kind of with like everyone. I think there's phases of life. And that phase was starting practice, kind of getting board certified. And I couldn't really explore all of my marketing interests because I just had to do the duties of learning the craft and being a podiatrist. But the problem is I tried to imitate initially, like my partner hired me, he said, Don, you should do wounds. And I didn't realize I didn't like wounds, but I went into wounds in terms of marketing. I developed a wound podcast, Heal Your Foot Wound Fast.
Ooh,
I did
okay.
like a ebook. But the thing, what I realized is wounds, no one has any money. No one's they're all non-compliant diabetics, and they're not going to listen to a podcast. But I was getting my marketing out that way by doing a podcast, doing all this other stuff that really gave me more joy than doing wounds. And eventually I kind of tweaked that, and I don't do many wounds anymore. And because in the beginning, you think you need to be like your partners or you need to be like others. And it took me years to kind of be able to be comfortable in my own skin and realize I do much better within my lane of what I'm good at. And I'm good at certain things and I'm not good at other things. And it took me a lot of courage to finally get to a point where I can understand that. And so in the beginning, I was doing everything that people wanted me to do. And then later on, I'm like, wait, I kind of like this video stuff. And so that's where I started to make YouTube videos, YouTubes, marketing, because I went to the conferences, I wrote all the different types of books. I just enjoyed that stuff. And I did that in my downtime between patients. That's when I was able to write the books. And then the website, we had a couple of other websites we used to do. I had one on the back end, which is Kajabi, that I liked because it was good for direct response marketing. And that's why I kind of got into it and with the marketing for the practice.
Very good.
So I don't, not so much a question, but an observation, which I think is just worth highlighting, because I know other podiatrists will go into partnership. I think it's great that even though you were partner with other podiatrists who weren't into marketing at all, you didn't let that stop you from pursuing that aspect of podiatry that you really loved. And I think podiatrists can actually learn something from it is you don't have to always have the same mindset with your partners. You can do your own sort of thing.
And it was hard. And they didn't, I think in the beginning, they were skeptical. They were like, I think Don should, do all this big surgical stuff like us. And I felt like I had to fill those shoes until I realized like, you don't want me to fill those shoes. And I do much better referring and, getting them in and referring them to you guys to do those things. You refer things to me that I like to do, but that's taken years. And so I think if you are training a doctor, because I think finding doctors that have batteries included for marketing is a really hard thing. We've struggled with multiple hires, and you think you're going to hire a doc and you think, oh, they're going to go out and market themselves and build their own practice. I've gotten to a point where I've realized I really have to develop a feeder system for them. And I can tell you kind of what we've worked on recently, but getting some with, batteries included to go out there and set up meet and greets and meet other doctors and this and that. I find it's hard. Not everyone's going to do that, even though if you train them and tell them to do it.
Tyson and I have talked about the past, like we talked about in, the 70s and 80s, there's a lot of solo practices, a lot of more entrepreneurial podiatrists that had put up their own shingle, and they had to basically kind of, they didn't necessarily have the high academic or the hospital-based training that we had, but they were a lot more solid in the basics of business and how to, run a successful business and practice. But we're finding in at least maybe around the time that we went to residency, Don, there's a bit of a shift where podiatrists wanted to be on staff at hospitals and wanted to do, the Ilizarov frames and the calcaneal fractures, and was kind of seen as more prestigious. And so maybe there's a bit of a shift away from that entrepreneurial spirit. And there's some people that just, if they live at the hospital for 3 years during residency and don't get out and spend time in these clinics, they don't have the batteries included, like you mentioned, to kind of know what to do or know how to do it. So I'd definitely be interested to hear more how you see, potential associates, but then how do you try to onboard those new associates to the practice to make sure that, they're pulling their weight and they see the value in, going out and doing those meet and greets and marketing the practice.
Yeah. So after I was a resident, they made time requirements in the residency. Because when I was a resident, I was like, well, if I'm not doing surgery, I'm going to learn much more by being in doctors' offices. So I was always in my attendings' offices, traveling different places, visiting different doctors, taking time off to do that because I wanted to learn the practice management. And every time I went there, I used to ask them for all their forms. And I tell even residents this day when they visit me, you have an open book to me. Whatever you ask, I'm going to help you. And I'm a type of person, I'm going to help anyone, no matter where they're at in their profession, to be better. What I can teach them, I'll teach them. But I'm saying, but especially a resident, like whatever you want to learn, whatever you want me to teach you. And you know how many come and ask me? None.
Very few.
But I will teach you how to do ultrasound, how to do shockwave, how to do marketing, how to do if you show any interest, it gives me so much pleasure. They ask me to do 1 lecture a year at my residency where I train residents, but that's all they want. I'm like, oh, okay, well, I'll do that one for you, and whatever I'm here. Okay, guys, I'm here. Just use me. But no one uses me. So when new doctors come in, I have put together every single manual you want. I have a new doctor provider manual of how to make the most profit off of every patient. I have this Practice Mastery Academy, which I've developed. They have full access to all of that. How many people actually go through it? No, none. The reason I have to charge for stuff is because when you don't pay, you don't value it.
That's true.
And the more you pay, the more you're going to value. You knew this, Tyson. I would give stuff away if people would do it. And so young doctors, the problem is, so the best way to get them to learn it, frankly, is to shadow me. We make them shadow us in the beginning. So they have to shadow us for a long period of time. Whenever they're not seeing patients, I say, shadow me. I say, record me, record the other doctors, write out how they explain things, because that is golden. Because there's my other colleagues, they're actually better at explaining certain things than I am. And I go in there and I shadow them. I still shadow them to this day. And one of them, Neil, he's a wordsmith. He must be like 40 or 50 pairs of orthotics a month, all cash pay. And I'm like, how does he do that? And I still, whenever I get a chance, I go listen to him. I think that's so important because we don't know everything.
No, I agree. I agree what you said, though, too, about if you would give the information away for free, if people would just do it. But they only do it if they actually pay for it. I don't know.
And they have to pay a lot. It's not just a little.
But I've run like marketing workshops, and it'll be at an event, and there might be 700 people 700 podiatrists going to that event, and you're killing yourself to get 25 bums on seats. Yet they will all complain, "I wish I had more patients. I wish my clinic was making more money." And you go, "Here's an event that you can go to and you can learn about it." Yeah, they don't see the value in it. But to me, you only got to talk to people who care about that side of things as well.
And so you're asking about like graduates. We have a 3-year residency. All the doctors come out, forefoot, rear foot trained. That's what we call it here. And they're very good surgeons. 2 of them now are going to be going to a fellowship. So they're going to do another year. And they are looking for high paying jobs. They're going to get a higher paying job. If they go to like a UMass system, they're going to make more than they would work with me in the beginning. But they're going to be capped and based on RVUs. So I think they're going to be capped at what they can produce, the maximal amount, because it's based on production. You can't buy into your clinic. You can't buy into the real estate. There's a lot of other downsides if you're looking to be an entrepreneur. But a lot of them, and everyone's buying up. As you know, I'm sure you've done maybe talks about this, about all these super groups that are buying up a lot of the practices. And they're going to pay me, and for my practice, like a 5 times multiple, whereas a young person coming out, they can't afford that. And then you're going to put someone in there and you're going to pay them an okay salary. But you're not going to even encourage them to do anything out of the curve. They just this is the way we do it. And you have to do this many orthotics. And that doesn't, my partner, who's at a perfect age to sell out, but I'm about 15 years out. It's not a good time for me to do that. But I have buddies that are doing that, but that would restrict me from the stuff I like to do that gives me energy.
What's the perfect age to sell out?
About 5 years before.
Oh no, but you said your partner's at the perfect age. What's the perfect
5 years?
age?
He's about 5 years. Yeah, he's about 5 years out before he's ready to retire.
How old is he now?
He's Neil. So I'm 40. He must be 56 or 55, something like that.
Yeah, it's a good age.
And so so even with us, he wants to go down to 3 days, just get his percentage, and then we would buy him out, and we'll do like a 5-year buyout for him.
That makes sense.
So we that's how it is scaled. So the other guy's 10 years younger than me, and the other guy's 5 or 6 years before that. So we're trying to have some type of succession planning, but
the circle of life from the Lion King. Yeah, that's right. But to me, that was a conversation I had with another podiatry friend, Jonathan Small, and he said it's the same thing where America might be different, but in the UK and Australia, sometimes people will build a practice up, they can't sell it, and eventually this practice that's been there 20, 30 years, got this great reputation, just closes. Whereas ideally you want that next person coming through who takes it over. And you see that with accounting firms, law firms, but unfortunately with podiatry clinics, that transition doesn't always happen. But I think you've got a good plan in place at the moment.
We'll see. It's because we're not trained to be business people. We're not trained in how to transition thing and train new doctors and things like that. Yeah, we have a pretty good thing going now.
So that's really helpful information. I'm sure some people that are in similar situations will get some value from that. I wanted to change the topic here a little bit and kind of dig deep into, what things you're finding is working, for your clinic there in Massachusetts, right? I think every other week there's some new shiny object in the marketing world. People are cold calling or cold emailing clinics saying, hey, we do this type of, this channel works really well for podiatrists. Or there's a new EMR, there's a new, bright shiny object in the marketing world. But just from your experience and kind of, you don't have to give out all your secrets that are working for you and your clinic.
I will give them all out, Jim, because no one's going to do them. You will give out everything because no one will do them.
That's true, but at the same time,
Tyson, you will give out everything, but no one will do it.
I used to say that. I'd get people come and visit. They would bring me up. They contact me an email. Oh, I'm going to be in Cairns. Would it be okay if we came out to your clinic? Yeah, not a problem. They come out and I say, walk around, take photos, ask me any question you want. I said, because I know when you leave here, you're probably not going to do any of it anyway.
So I will give you everything. So my number one thing, I'll tell you what we have and then how we did it.
Do we need a drum roll for this? This would be really, let's build it up. And the number one thing is,
if you Google podiatrists in Worcester or Westboro, every other one practice has 100 reviews. We have 10 times that. That's what we do. How do we do it? Let me explain. There's a company that's called Swell, SWELL. They automatically at 6 p.m. send out an email to every single patient. There are 2 requests. The first request happens at 6 hours after to that specific location, Westboro or Worcester. Okay. Once that goes out, hey, how do we do? Give our practice a review. Perfect. Then 3 days later, depending on where the doctor is at, we want to dominate Google. So we have 2 spots, one for Westboro and Worcester, and then we have 8 other spots because we have 4 doctors. So we have 4 doctor pages in Worcester and 4 doctor pages in Westboro. And so the second email that goes out 3 days later, hey, thanks for giving us a rating for our practice. Would you guys giving the actual doctor that you visited in Westboro this review as well? And so that's my number one tip, to dominate online reviews, because people come in and I'm very humble about it. We've done a good job. Oh, I had so many good reviews. People say some nice things. If I do a good job, maybe you'll give us one too. I just kind of plant that seed, and people have a lot of nice things to say, but it's orchestrated. If it's not orchestrated, it's not going to be done. And we don't pay big money. So we pay $600 a month. So it's $400 if you only do the main clinic. And if you want to add each individual sub Google My Business pages, it's another $200, which is chump change, $600 per month for that. That's what blows up our practice.
Okay.
So that's the number one thing. So go ahead and do that. Pay Swell and tell them I sent you. I don't know if they haven't given me a kickback yet, but maybe they will. That's number one. My second thing to get where do we get our patients from? The second thing would probably be, now we're having I don't know, we have like a good web page, I guess, but Jim can talk better to that. We have SEO optimized pages. They come in from that. A lot of them come in from referrals from the primary doctors and referrals from other patients. That is how a lot of them. But these days, a lot of them are coming from online. Like I think the majority are coming because they're just searching for us, and usually it's due to Google, and we just rank so much better than anyone else.
Do you still go out there and do many like live presentations to groups of people or anything like that?
What I'm trying to find, I would do it if someone set it up for me. If you want to develop something and I would pay for this, I'm trying to get a virtual assistant, a virtual practice rep, kind of like a drug rep, a virtual practice rep that would set these up. Because if you set up 1 or 2 a month, I would go out and do them. I just don't have the time to set it up, and my office manager doesn't have time to set it up. But I love that. Gives me so much energy doing those things. That's just something I personally like to do, and I would love to bring the new doctor to go introduce to the PCBs. I just don't have time to set it up, and I don't have a good practice rep. I don't have that set up.
Yeah, and it takes time.
I find it beneficial. I'll invest the time. It takes time to set it up. That's the thing, and the phone calls back.
But it also takes time to build that relationship with the person that will help organize, put the talk together.
Yeah, and I thought of a couple of other things. I thought about piggybacking. So there are certain reps. For example, there's a vein clinic that always meets us, and hey, would you go out and rep us as well? So you're already going to the same primary cares for veins. Would you mind setting up something for us? And he did a little bit of that, but there was no incentive for him to do that. We also tried to do that with a pathology company that reps us, that comes to us and says, hey, would you help us get, they have no incentive. Like if I paid them maybe $500 a thing they set up, they might do it. But I struggle with that. I'm trying to do that. Absolutely. One thing that's also working really well is I'm a big advocate of, I like following like I think Jay Abraham. He's a good marketing guy. And he always talks about kind of stealing things outside of your industry. And you don't have to be smarter. You just have to look what's working in other industries. And one of the things I think that's working really well are this idea of urgent cares. And I think urgent cares, I don't know if they're popping up where you're at there, Tyson, but in the US here, all these convenient MD urgent cares, right, are showing up. And I thought to myself, we were always struggling with a really good offer. And so when you talk about any of these marketing guys, Dan Kennedy, things like that, they always talked about a free visit. And I always thought that felt tacky.
Yeah.
My colleagues didn't really like the idea. So if you can't do it for less money, because usually insurance covers it, right? Usually insurance covers most of the things that we do. Certainly we can talk about cash pay things if you want afterwards, but for getting them in the door, it's usually an insurance thing. And so if you can't compete on price, you can compete on speed. And I think speed is a good way to compete, and that's how urgent cares do it. And so I thought to myself, well, how can I imitate this? So I asked my my people that help me, and I say, can you make like an urgent care page for podiatry? And then can you write like 10 blogs pointing back to that urgent care page? And by the way, there's this one other company that does it. Here's their podiatry urgent care, and they kind of copied it. And then we spend like $5 a day on Facebook ads, kind of going to that urgent care. So it's neat because in our schedule, I can actually see which patients come in from that urgent care page because it's an actual separate booking block. And so the ad is guaranteed appointment in 24 to 48 hours for urgent care appointments. And so that is prefacing it on based on speed, whereas most podiatrists, it might take you 2, 3, 4 weeks to get in. Usually these urgent care patients are pretty simple. At least you can triage them initially. I thought about doing it like you'll be seen in 15 minutes or your copay back, but I didn't really like that. I like, being seen 24 to 48 hours. And we can do that now because you have a new doctor. Now, once this new doctor gets too busy, we might not be able to offer that 24 to 48 hours. But I think, marketing yourself based on speed is something that, because we do really well with patients that are in pain, right? And then I did a whole bunch of videos on like patients that came to me after going to an emergency room. And I told this story. I said, this patient was waiting 12 hours in the emergency room. They got an x-ray. They didn't have a fracture. Then they came to follow up with me. There was no fracture and they didn't need the boot that they had given them. And I did a video on that. And then another patient that came in, went to the urgent care for an ingrown toenail. They got an antibiotic, but they couldn't take out the ingrown toenail. They came to see me, and I did it. And at the end, I said, you should just come to see us for the ingrown toenail, for the fracture, for whatever it is, versus the urgent care. And we see these multiple times a day. And then, so I'm a marketing guy. And so then I think, okay, this is working. So I always think of like what's working and how can I make it work even better?
Yeah.
This is what I always try to build off of what's working. So now that this is working, I think to myself, okay, I'm going to make up a 3x5 business card or a postcard and give it to every single patient saying, hey, by the way, priority access for your friends and family for our urgent care. They'll be seen within 24 to 48 hours. It's the same offer, but it's now saying for friends and family, 24 to 48 hours as an added bonus benefit to you guys, and give that. And then how about taking that same card and then bringing it to like the shoe stores and say, hey, every patient that comes in for a pair of shoes, would you mind putting this little 3x5 card? We send all of our shoe stuff to you. Would you mind putting this in there for me? And then I thought, this is how my mind works. And then I thought, well, these urgent cares, they're really messing up on a lot of these things. Maybe I could go and be a resource to them and I could go teach them how to do a paronychia. I could go teach them how to, look at their x-rays. I could even be a resource. They can text me an x-ray if they're unsure because their radiologist read it 24 hours later. They can text it to me. I'll be a resource. Why? So then and I'm going to give them my urgent care podiatry things. They can get their patients in 24 to 48 hours because they're going to send them over anyway. But we're going to give them like a direct access line to our clinic. So they're going right there, then boom, boom, right to us because they're not treating that stuff. And now everyone gets scared. This is so funny. So when I started, I made a great video on teaching exactly how to do ingrown toenails. And I had some colleagues that came to me and said, Don, you're teaching them how to do it. You're giving away our secrets. And I said, do you think emergency room doctors or primary cares are going to do ingrown toenails? No. But they're going to know that I'm the expert and they're going to send them all to come and see me. I feel like so many people are so insecure about teaching, even practice management stuff, like business stuff, marketing stuff. Oh, it's my idea. You can take my urgent care idea, make it better, and then tell me what you're doing. And I would love that for you. So I just like to help.
Yeah, but if you think about like even yourself, people that you follow with marketing or you've learned from marketing, you've read their books, usually the people you follow, who is it? Humaz, what's his name again?
Alex Hormozi right now.
Yeah, Alex Hormozi, for example. You will follow him and may spend money with him based on the free stuff you obtained from him first. And because there was so much value there, you then go, well, if that's good, then I'm going to spend the money to see what else he's got. And I think that works with what you're doing now with your marketing, is if you're giving that information or that education away for free, people go, well, I don't want to do it, but you are the person I should be sending them to because you're the expert.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm going to share what makes me the most money right now.
Tell us that we need to hear this.
Sure.
Everyone needs to hear this.
What gives me the most joy too?
That's even better.
It gives me joy and it makes me money and it makes patients better. So if I could only do one thing, so the 80-20 rule, right?
Yep.
What brings in 80% of my revenue and, takes away 20%, only gives you 20% of the stress. And I think there's a future for this. I'm not at the phase right now where I'm willing to do it. But my number one thing, if you could give me one thing to do all day long, it would be shockwave. So shockwave, both radial and focused shockwave for any type of musculoskeletal issue, because I think it really, really helps patients. You have to be really good at explaining things, and I guess you could call that sales.
Yeah.
To make it work. And so all these things that are coming out, like Swift, like shockwave, like the self-pay things, I seem to do very well with those, and it's taken me time, but I think they really help patients, and that's what I do. And the majority do like 3 sessions. I do like 6 sessions on every one, and I get great results. And so most of my day is filled with that. Now I haven't talked to my colleagues because I'm a marketing guy, so I'm thinking, I can train anyone to do this. So I don't want to occupy my time with all these visits. Can we just hire someone to do this and I'll train them? And they're like, no, you have to do it because you're the doctor. I'm like, okay. So I just breathe deep and I'm like, okay. They don't buy all my ideas, because then I would just be like, okay, I could just work 3 days. I could just sell all the packages of shockwave and someone else would do the six treatments, but I'm not quite there yet.
Well, I mean, when I sold my clinic, the one thing I wish I hadn't sold with it, I wish I had kept the shockwave machine for myself. Because I thought it was a great piece of equipment.
Yeah.
Well,
So it's that's what I like the most. And yeah, and I'll give you one more of my favorite things. I so Jim remembered when I used to do something called patient presentations, and I think I talked to you about this,
Oh, I
Tyson.
remember that. We did a whole
Um,
podcast on your
yeah,
patient
yeah. So
presentations.
I did patient presentations, and I found something even better. I don't know if it's probably not my idea. It was probably someone else's idea I stole. Actually, I think it was. I don't remember who, but I basically made something else called a treatment sheet now. So I have treatment sheets on everything that I treat, and on that sheet, it has it has shockwave, anti-inflammatories, everything, initial treatments, follow-up treatments, and I give these out to any podiatrist. So if you guys want these, I'll send them, or anyone that's listening to this, if you want them, shoot me an email. If you want to give my email, and after you can, or if you want me to give it, it's up to you. But I give these, and so I take it out. They're in my treatment room, and I flip it over and I go through the patient, and it basically explains how we're going to treat it, and has all the most expensive things first, and all the other things there. And I pretty much say, we're gonna, I think the best thing is this thing right here, shockwave. It's and I say it's really expensive. It's about $1,500. We can try some of these other things. So I plant the seed, right? And then I go, we're going to try these other things first. If this doesn't work, we're going to do an ultrasound that'll help me decide we're going to do the shockwave. So they might try night splint, foam rolling, all the other stuff. When they come back in 3 weeks, I'll do an ultrasound, show them it's thicker on one side than the other side. So what sells shockwave all the time is ultrasound. Okay, can't do it without ultrasound, in my opinion. And then they're going to get that package. And I hope I charge more than anyone else. So I charge $250 a session for one side, and then $500 a session for two sides. So it's $1,500 to $3,000. And I say, and some patients want to do amnio injection, which is another $1,500. So that's called price anchoring. So I anchor it up, and then they're like, that's $3,000. Yeah, but most people don't. In your case, I don't think you need it because I didn't see any tear. So it'll just be 15. And they're like, okay, it's only 15. So this is like a technique that's more advanced marketing. But it's really helped. I do the same thing when I'm doing nail fungus. So I always talk about, like, they're going to need the UV light, the shoe spray, and then the biotin, which is like $200. And I say, in a lot of patients, they want to do lunula or laser. It's like $1,500, but I don't really think it works, and I truly don't think it works as well as terbinafine. And so, but that's called price anchoring. So everything that I do, I price anchor it up and I drop it down. That's more of an advanced marketing technique, but it really, really helps me. And doctors, we don't tend to talk that way, but I'm talking to you guys, so I think you guys understand that. So.
Yeah, we get it.
No, that's really helpful, and I think there's a lot of people who will learn that technique on the podcast and definitely could use it into practice. We're kind of getting close to a half an hour here, and before we let you go, we really enjoyed having you on. If there's any podiatrists that are listening to the podcast this far into it that are haven't started or want to improve their marketing, are there any pieces of advice you would give to those folks looking to grow their practice and better understand marketing, besides listening to the first 199 episodes of the Podiatry Marketing Podcast?
The first
Twice.
199 episodes.
Yeah, listen to them twice.
Podcast. Let's do them twice. No, and I'm serious. Like, when I was getting into marketing, I listened to the first 200 episodes of I Love Marketing with Dean Polish and Dean Jackson and Joe Polish. I think podcasts are a great way to absorb information. But I think even better than that is find someone that is positive on podiatry. They don't even need to be a good marketer. And even if they're not your colleague in your practice where you work or at your hospital, go spend time with them. Okay? Spend time shadowing. But it's going to cost me $1,000. Who cares? You're going to learn so much more by come to visit me. Come to visit anyone that's positive on podiatry. We're going to let you come and visit. I'm going to may charge you only so you'll come, because if I give it out for free, no one comes and visits me. So, people come and then they don't do anything. But go visit someone. I even think that's more important than reading books. I think it's more important than listening to podcasts. I think it's more important than anything would be go to find a doctor that's really good at marketing, really good at sales, really good at business. And if you can't do that, then you binge everything that they produce. So let me give you an example. I wanted to get better at orthotics. And my other, I'm just joking with the romance thing, but my other friend is Larry Hupman. And he has an amazing YouTube channel. And he teaches everything and how he explains orthotics. Everything. So all you do is you just binge when you're in your car, everything that he's ever said about orthotics. And I'm like, oh, this makes sense. This is how he explains it. And I'll just explain it the same way as Larry. And I'll probably do just as many as him. And so anything with shockwave, if you want to learn shockwave, you see how people are explaining it and just binge whatever they're listening. So what I have done, I'm going to give a plug for my podcast. Is that okay?
Yeah,
Yeah,
do
totally
it.
fun.
Well, yeah. So I have a podcast. It's called the Podiatry Practice Mastery, where I teach every single day what gets my practice to the $1 million mark. I basically go through and I write down my list of patients, and every single day I say, this is my most valuable patient, this is my least valuable patient, this is what I did wrong here. And I go through and I teach you every single day how I get to the $1 million mark in my personal production. And you'll see I'm talking about, okay, this is shockwave number 4 out of 6. It gets a little repetitive. This is 3 out of 6. This is 6 out of 6. And I'm doing an office visit. This is how I did this. This is how I did the fracture management code. So I go through that every single day. So it doesn't have to be mine, but find someone that's passionate that you want to follow. And that's the best way to learn. So I figured people can't visit me because they're tightwads and they don't want to take time out of the practice. I'm sorry to say that. They're probably not tightwads. No one values it enough.
Oh,
I
no.
can't get them to come.
There's tightwads
So
out
I
there.
teach them. I teach them every single day what I do. And the problem is people still don't listen. So anyway, that's my word. And to get better is listen to my podcast and ask me questions. And I give it all for free.
That sounds great, Don. Thanks for sharing all that info.
No, and I do believe, though, there are tightwads in our profession. They just, I call them freeple. They're freeple. They're the people that only want free stuff.
But free doesn't benefit you, because you need to invest in yourself. And I bet you these freeple people also don't buy books. They probably don't invest in their own selves to go to conferences. Like every single year I go to a shockwave conference. Every single year I go to the AAPPM. Like you have to invest in yourself too. That's the only way you're going to get better. So invest in conferences. I learned a while back, and you probably know this, take what you earn and you have to invest in yourself 10%.
Yep.
It's hard to get to that number. You're looking at, anywhere between $15,000 and $20,000, $30,000, but there's no better investment that'll repay you. So you try to buy as many books, get as many courses, go to as many things, and it's a business expense. You're investing in yourself.
Anyone that listens to this or the Podiatry Legends podcast, must give the podcast a plug as well. But I go to Arizona every October without fail. Been doing it for like over a decade now, and airfares, accommodation, my few drinks I have, the burgers I eat. When I add that all up, it costs a lot of money to do that every year. But what I get out of it, every single time I do it, I can't put a price on that. The friends I've made, the connections you make when you're at those events, you cannot put a price on it. So the podiatrists that sit in their clinics and go, oh no, I don't want to spend that money, it's too much. I think you're going to get out of the profession, you're going to get out of the career what you actually put into it.
And it's not all podiatry. I'm a big believer in cross-sectional learning, right? Because a lot of the best ideas come from other things. I've been going to something called Strategic Coach for about, 12 years now. And I think I'm trying to get to be in the $1 Million Club and the amount I invest in that company. But I go every 3 months. I fly to Toronto. I get to get out of my head, work on my business. And it's a non-podiatry specific coaching program. And it's just the one that I've gone to, and they tend to be my friends, kind of like your friends that you have, Tyson, and these things. And so
have you got other podiatrists do that?
So there's MDs, there's other people like that. There were some podiatrists in it for a time. I'm just a slow learner that wants to spend a lot of money. I just keep going. That's what you like in our coaching. That's what we like in our coaching programs. But the truth is, you have to work on yourself, and however you want to do that, but usually the more you pay, the more you value it.
Yeah, I agree. Well, the event I go to in October, there's maybe 3 or 4 other podiatrists that go to it like each year. Sometimes only 2, sometimes there's 4. Everybody else, they're lawyers and real estate and pilots, completely.
Which one is that? Is that Kennedy's event or who's?
Oh, that's Dave Freeze, Business Black Ops.
Dave Freeze.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it's always great. Have you ever gone? You haven't gone, have you?
I haven't gone. You never invited me. You never told me. I know about Dave Freeze. You never invited me to go.
Reach out to Dave Freeze and come along. It's fun. You'll enjoy it. Cool. It's a crazy group.
All right. Well, I think we'll wrap there for the 200th episode. I want to thank you so much, Don, for joining us on this exciting conversation. We kind of went in different areas, but appreciate your openness and your sharing. And even though this is free, I think people will get a lot of use out of it. And if they don't get any use out of it, they can get in touch with one of us and get charged for it. So
are we charging for this episode? No. No, we ain't charging if they want to talk to us afterwards.
No, you should go to the podiatry, go to their next conference. That's what you need to do. Invest in the next conference that Tyson and Jim are going to do.
Yes.
Yeah, one of these times.
Okay, Don, it's been fantastic seeing you again.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate your time.
Bye now.
Thanks for listening to Podiatry Marketing with Tyson Franklin and Jim McDaniel. Subscribe and learn more at Podiatry Marketing. That's the website address, podiatry.marketing.